The article that Thursday night we presented, I started with talking about the wave from a transpersonal perspective. That was an article that was presented. It will be in Transpersonal Journal. I wrote it, Dan Simon Senzon. And this article, one of the things I talk about in the article is a concept I coined called transpersonal vigilance. And I think this applies to many people here, especially people who are crying right now. I will teach you the technique there. This is part of their teaching. This conditions the space so your beingness has the sensory motor skills and ability to observe in a way rationally and beyond. People who are wounded early in life somehow feel they don't fit in. They don't belong. They're the wrong family or the wrong culture. It's said, one of the stories is that as the stork is flying with the egg, a wind came up and dropped the egg in the wrong person's body. And that's the basis of the wild woman or the wild man, who the world tries to tame, who winds up very often in mental institutions or in prisons or other areas outlying the culture. In years of working with people who have substance abuse and challenges in communities of Padre Religio, and with his vision, I have found that those people who have the greatest gifts to bring to changing the culture, those people who are marginalized and pushed to the side and don't make it in the culture. They think differently. They know. They feel differently. And there's no place consistently to show up that way and to be seen for who they are. Anybody relate to this? So, you're vigilant. You've been wounded early in life and you're vigilant. What does this mean? It means that you're sleeping at night and a bug hits the windshield of the window of your house and you wake up alarmed, looking at it. You smell a little bit fire at night, just someone burning a fireplace, and you jump up checking whether the house is burning or not when no one else can even smell the fire. An insect lands on you, you wake up startled to make sure you're not going to be injured. You wake up in the middle of the night with the wind, looking around to make sure all the doors are safe in the house, to make sure your children are being okay. You're on guard, vigilant to protect yourself. You're vigilant from the bioenergy, which means you're vigilant with the instinct, all the astral instincts, the smells, the fragrance, everything to know, is it safe here? You very often go to fear to make sure you're safe, to keep you alert. Then you may have emotional vigilance. And the emotional vigilance, still pretty rational, beyond the thing, is you don't know why, but somebody feels anger someplace in the room. There's one particle of anger right over there, and you're vigilant to it because you heard anger one time with somebody, rage, misused anger one time hurt you as abuse. So you're sensitive to it. Or it may be guilt, or it may be shame, some emotion that you associate with wounding for yourself or others. You're vigilant to it. No one else feels it, and you feel it. You know it. You're sensitive. Why? To protect yourself. And then the mind, the whole mind, the game of the mind is only about vigilance. It's about creating a story to protect you, but rather than protect your survival, protect its existence of the sense of self. So you use the same strategies for protecting your life you did for bioenergy and emotional with the mind, now to protect your identity. And you feel like you're going to die if the identity has changed. And when it comes to an identity, you're not even sure of your identity because you never fit into the culture. Because you were wounded so much, you asked questions and said, but why would he do this to me? Why would she do this to me? How could this happen to me? How could this happen to my family? This is not right. It doesn't make sense. To make sense, you became vigilant with something else, the soul or the universal spirit intelligence. Why? You had to know before you walked into the space whether that safe space is safe. So you learned to feel the energy of the space. You learn to feel the soul of the person, to know, is this someone I could trust or not? Is this someone who will hurt me, or is this someone who can help me? You learned it, and you learned to use those states. So as a child, you may have sat and you may have had visions of things. You may have looked at people, their face may have disappeared, you may have colors. You may have talked about your imaginary friends who were there, who may have died or passed on, had with you or hung around with you until you were told not to hang around with them because they were doorways to the other dimension for you. You were wounded in a way to know, I cannot trust this culture. This is not the real world for me. And the more you did that, the more the world will beat the hell out of you. And then at some point, you decided to drop your standard, to fit in, to be accepted, to be like everyone else. To blind yourself when you have a vision that very few people have. A vision that can only be born and only be birthed through massive pain. To know that this world, this way of seeing things, is not okay. It will not protect me. So you become vigilant. And you know what people are thinking beforehand. You may have empathy. You may feel, who was wounded like me? Which parent, who has an alcoholic parent, who has a drug-addicted brother, who has someone who was raped, and you know it, and you have the union. You could connect to that person instantly. Anybody relate to this? More than the world you might imagine is this. It was called initiation. Your heart wasn't broken, it was broken opened. You were cracked open to spirit in a way that would take someone else 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years or lifetimes to be broken over to, but as a small child or young adult, before the sense of self fully evolves. Why? Because the world, humanity, is counting on you to wake up. And the process has been accelerated. The heat's been put up to be accelerated. So you start searching beyond the mind early in life, initially because you're vigilant. Now, I had a conversation with some billionaires. I have a conversation with some more powerful people in America about this type of thing. And they may have called me and said, Donny, I'm paying, could you help me? And I sat down and I talked about their life and what happened with them at this point and said, this is how I'm going to help you. This, I believe, why our souls have come together regardless of the form. What would it be like, instead of using the spiritual sense as an awareness to protect yourself, what if your vigilance was in you fulfilling your soul's incarnation? What if your vigilance was the fabric of humanity evolving? What if your vigilance became every thought, every feeling, every touch, every idea you had supports the evolution of humanity? What if you became vigilant instead to your soul being manifest the way it was? What if you became vigilant to making sure love is expressed in the world? What if you became vigilant to raising the standard rather than protecting yourself? What if you became vigilant to the fact that you already were freaking ripped open? Stop trying to close it up. And some of these people who became obsessed about having to work and achieve things or make money or do whatever it is, did it because they had to do it. There was a burning passion because of the wounding. What they meant to do is be. But they be in the culture, they did. Until that no longer satisfies and they move to awaken later in life. I know this. I live this. That's my hunger. I was recently, about a year ago, went to a car rental place. I met a friend in Las Vegas, stopped over there, going someplace. I met a friend, and he wanted a particular car. He told me he had the car, they didn't. So we went over to the car rental counter. I said, don't worry, I'll get you the car. He said, but they're out of it. I said, no worries. I waited, and I said, she's the one you have to speak to. That's the one I spoke to before. I said, come on over. And I used a skill set. I looked at her. I used it as an opportunity. You would think I used it as an opportunity to get the car for this person, but no, that was the messenger. I said, "Hi, ma'am." I said, "Hi." I said, "You have an extraordinary smile." She looks at me like this. I said, "Did?" I said, "It's your mama's smile, isn't it?" She said, "Yeah." "She did a good job, didn't she?" She said, "Yeah." "I know she's gone, but she's right near you right now." And she starts crying. "My mama died 2 weeks ago." I said, "I know." And I just said, "You know, the way she baked those cinnamon buns for you, and she put the sprinkles just on top, especially the pink ones you like." She's crying. She says, "That was my mama's favorite thing she made to me, and I love the pink sprinkles like this." I said, "Yeah, I know. This is my friend over here." I said, "Listen, it's simple. Your mama taught you to serve people, didn't she?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, just excuse me, is there any possible way my friend could get the car he wants? Or your friend could get blessed by your mom too? Maybe that could be a further blessing. Maybe that's the reason why we're here together right now." So she went down personally, went over, made phone calls to escort us, and got the car. And he got in the car, and I'm in his passenger seat. He's going like that, and he's going, "Donny, like this, I got my car." Like this. I said, "It's not done." And as we're pulling out, I said, "Stop." I'm like, "Wait. Just wait." And about a minute later, she comes running out back, like knocks on the door window. She says, "My mom is okay." I said, "That's not the thing. She wants you to know that you're okay." I said, "What?" She says, "And call your sister." Right? So just bring the table, thanks. So this is an hour ago. So I've done this. It's my schedule. I was supposed to rationally. And I'm mentioning this because anyone who has that skill set originally was to protect yourself. And when you become responsible for it and rather than blocking the mind or inhibiting the mind, allow the mind to serve that. And not be concerned when I say something. I say it, and part of me says, "What the hell are you saying? Cinnamon buns pink?" A part of me saying, "What is this bullshit? I hope it's right." Shit, if not, he won't get the car. But my feeling is that, yes, I use that as an opportunity to connect there. So that's called transpersonal vigilance. And so many of the transpersonal practitioners who are taking care of people who have awakened experiences are having perceptions awaken with structure and behavior and discover. And they don't need more awakening. They don't need more oneness. They don't need more meditation. They need to connect and discover and transform, and they need the service we have. And the progression of NSA, SRI, the progression, all of this is going to be in the journal on transpersonal medicine now. So people who are going to transpersonal practitioners to help them deal with a non-ordinary experience in spiritual states are going to find out as they have those states, and the practitioners want to help them in those states because that's the states they go to. It's great before grad school. Let's get handled what has to get handled so you can be congruent by the time you get to awaken. And not be about you protecting yourself or you feeling good about yourself, but you being here in a way that helps uplift all of humanity. That's the gig.